entire interaction. Like Yami would try to hit him, and then he would move like a massive distance away, and then it would take Yami like a second to even figure out where he was. And then Gin just kind of like folds Ichigo. I'll grab the scans for the Yami fight here.
I was about to say, I remember the Yami fight, but I'm pretty sure whenever him and Gin fought, they were fairly relative towards each other until Ichigo started like having some type of existential crisis over how strong Aizen was.
Relative to each other, I'm not too sure. Like Ichigo using like a holified Getsuga, like barely manages to cut Gin, and Ichigo's just like on the defensive the whole time. And not only that, but Gin actually cuts Ichigo with his Bankai and just doesn't even activate his poison at all. So, like, at any point in that fight, Gin really could have just, like, completely negged Ichigo.
Sure, that seems to be mainly due to the hacks, but I'm talking about just in their stat scaling.
Oh, and
Because
the stat scaling? Okay.
they seem to do like comparable damage towards each other, at least when Ichigo's head was still in the fight, because we know that within Bleach you could get some type of almost like Naruto, how you can get like willpower amps or debuffs. And we know that they what's his name? Ichigo was able to dodge his Bankai techniques, even some of them like Buto and Buto Reijin or Renjin, some shit like that.
He was able to what?
He's able to dodge some of his techniques like Buto.
Oh, yeah. Okay, here, let me, I got the scans on my phone.
At least their speed scaling should be relative.
Oops. Yikes. Yeah, so at the start of the fight, Ichigo is like, actually, here, let me just send it before I even start explaining it. Otherwise, I'll forget to. You're a retard.
Oh, I feel it in my.
I'm also gonna include the scan of Ichigo hitting Gin with the "I didn't ask" just for comedic value.
Hold on, let me check my phone real quick. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Posting scans and calcs, right?
Yeah. I believe this is the literal first thing that happens. Or maybe the second. Let me I'll go to the chapter while we go over this to make sure nothing came prior to it. But it's like
What chapter
Ichigo
was
is like,
the Yami fight again, real quick? Sorry,
oh, the Yami fight was 377, I think it starts, or 378.
Okay, let me check around there. Oh boy, Kensei getting negged. Everyone loves seeing that for the 50th time.
What's getting negged?
Kensei, God, he's a bitch in this series.
Kensei. Oh man. Oh yeah, I guess I should also drop the scan of like Ichigo, like cutting Yami, saying he could crush him with power. That.
Yeah, I see that one right now.
Oh
He puts
yeah.
on his mask.
I'll post it for True's sake if he ever decides he wants to look at it.
But it doesn't even do anything to him. It kind of nicks his shoulder muscles.
Oh, I thought he cut off his arm. I might have
No,
missed
no,
saw
I'll show
this
you
thing.
right here. I'll show you. Yeah, that really does like almost nothing to him because like he knocks him down. That's fine, but then he even says like you nicked me.
Oh,
And you
yeah.
see it.
See, I
That's
got
like nothing.
confused by this scan here. I can't even tell exactly what's happening here
Mhm.
because Yami's anatomy is so bizarre. But yeah. So let's see. Then Yami comes back. So stops the ball.
What are you posting right now?
Oh yeah, I'll drop the. It's just him stopping the ball. Which, uh, not really gonna argue for any particular speed point there, other than just that should be one of Yami's faster attacks, at least faster than his base punches.
Mhm.
And Ichigo is still able to like react to it and block it. There's the one about him being nicked, like you said. Comes through.
Hold on, let me see. Hold up, let me see. Let me check the chat. Yeah, so him kind of negging it. Okay, so that's fine. He can react to like some of his faster attacks, which this attack, there's no indication that the ball is any faster than his reaction speed. So we would just assume that it
Yeah.
would be at least comparable to his reaction speed at most. But then, I mean, that's fine. We see that Yami is is still able to at least grab him because he had his eyes on him and he was still in the fight. Granted, he got kind of shocked by the fact that his mask didn't fully come out, but then he just got completely overwhelmed in that little instance that his mask didn't come out. And then he grabs him and he's about to crush him in his hand. And then that's when Byakuya comes and uses Sokatsui.
Oh yeah, the Hado that he uses. Also, I
Yeah.
like forgot to mention this. Well, I wouldn't say I forgot. I more like I just remembered. Ichigo was at like half power during this interaction, right? Because he only had half of his whatever his lame outfit is called. And then there's the
Mm-hmm.
statement with Unohana, or that he gives to Unohana, where he says that his like level of power is based on how much of his thing remains, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then like Ichigo, uh, later on, once he's healed in his interactions with Aizen and Gin, should be at least twice that in spiritual pressure, I believe. To
Well, he should be twice that in terms of his Reiatsu, like or spirit energy, whatever it was.
yeah,
I think it
yeah.
was spirit energy. But hold on, let me. Yeah, so I mean that's that's fine. However, we know that he was about to get kind of negged by what's his name? Yami, because like all right, he stops him from charging up Acero Oscuras, but even then, charging Acero isn't and stopping it while it's being charged isn't the same as stopping the fully charged thing. So this wouldn't scale to Acero Oscuras,
Well,
not at least the full
okay,
potential power of it, anyways. And then
so
we know that like say his Holified, at least at half power, only nicked him, but then this is what Kempachi was able to do to him, which should be at least, I mean, easily relative towards what's his name? Um Byakuya in just the base form of his Bankai, not including things like Senkei or Haku Taken or like even any of his more crazy abilities with this Bankai, like Gokei or Ika Sajinka.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that's fine. I do want to bring up something about that Sero point though, because like a Sero kind of is just like them massing up spiritual pressure, right?
Kinda, yeah.
Okay, and like, do you think that like if a Sero's fired and somebody like just like hacks through the Sero, that they would like scale to the Sero?
I mean, if it's fully charged, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I am a bit confused. What is the source of like power for the Sero, or like where does its like damage potential come from?
Well, I mean, they just store up their spiritual energy, and then it ends up being collected into that little ball, and then the ball gets fired off.
Yeah. So I what I'm thinking is like after the Sero's fired, it seems to take on like a larger surface area than it had before. So I don't know. My mind's just kind of leading me to believe that if the Sero's in this ball form, that it should actually be denser and harder to cut than any particular point in a Sero when it's inspired.
Sure, but there's no indication that this was fully charged because we know what happens when a Sarah is fully charged. Like for example, we could even see this in like the anime as a visual representation. This happens in the manga as well. So this would be a canon scene. When Ichigo fights that Menos, what we see happen is it makes a ball of that energy and then it compresses down and then it fires. We see that consistently actually. The ball it starts collecting, it gets compressed down, and then it fires off.
Oh, do we see
This
that?
ball, it was still collecting energy.
Let me
So it wouldn't even be close to its full strength. So there's nothing to indicate that this would be uh, like him scaling towards his most powerful technique.
all right. Let me drop the Unohana scale. I know you know about it already, but just for whatever other purpose, and then I'm gonna go check one of the other scenes with some Sero firing.
He said I'm gonna post it for true because he's a dum dum. Okay, real speak.
I just
Real
don't know if you've seen Bleach. Okay. No one cares about Byakuya and Mayuri's conversation.
Literally no one.
She start healing him. Please don't make me have to go through a whole nother chapter.
Wait, which scan are you looking for again?
Just the one or my Bankai, it seems to be. Yeah.
Oh no, I know about that one. You don't need to post it.
I'm on it anyway right now, so I'm dropping it. I think. Yeah. Oh yeah, she just states half the spirit energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And even half of his spirit energy with his full power was only able to nick Yami. Meanwhile, Kenpachi was able to hack through him. Like it was literally hacking him to pieces. Like it was nothing.
I mean, are you scaling Byakuya to Kenpachi?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. Do you well yeah, I guess I'll let the Sero point uh go if you want to go into like Byakuya scaling to Kenpachi.
And before we move forward, do you agree that like him stopping it before it's fully charged, or even before it fires off, wouldn't really be scaling to the whole thing, right?
Uh yeah.
All right, cool. Then yeah, we can move forward.
Okay, so how do you scale Byakuya to Kenpachi?
Oh, because they did very similarly against Kenpachi, because we know that whenever what's his face, Byakuya and Kenpachi clashed against Yami's giant ass face, what happened was Kenpachi ended up hitting him on his mask, and we know that the mask is it's shown to be particularly weak compared to the rest of their body. Like for example, Findor, he just lightly nicks his face and then his mask starts shattering, and he becomes stronger because of it. Or for example, Ukiora when he was a Vasto Lorde. Well, his mask shattered apart while walking into this big giant thing of those crystal-like trees. Or Nell, she's able to put her foot on Noitora Zanpakuto, but then her mask got sliced even while getting caught off guard. So I mean, it's just kind of showing that like their mask seems to be a particular weak spot for them. And so this would show, all right, well, he hit a weak spot, gushing blood. He hit his face, his skin, which is the second hardest Hiedo in the series. And then it's like still like immensely scathed up. And this is the weakest form of his Bankai. It's just the uncontrolled, unfocused version. And I'm pretty sure he didn't even use his hands to direct it, meaning that a slower version of his techniques would be relative in speed to Kenpachi, while also being relative in strength.
Okay, you're talking about this scan, right? The one where like Yami pulls up while they're like arguing or whatever, and then they like hit him in the face, right?
Yeah, because you could see right there, he hits him on his mask. What's his name? Kenpachi. It's like directly on his mask. You can see the slash right there.
Yeah.
And then part of what's his name's attack is hitting him on the mask, but then it seems as though most of it is hitting him on his face. Yet it's like an unfocused form of his Bankai. It's like the weakest one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, wait. Are you saying the mask is the hardest part or the weakest part, or like
It seems to be demonstrated that it's weaker than just about anything else.
Okay. I would agree with that, but even then, right? Their masks don't bleed. I don't think, right? So it seems
What's
like
underneath
Kenpachi.
it does too. Yeah. But I mean, it's still showing that like his whole jaw seems to be a mask at this point in time. Because like we see it before, like his whole lower jaw appears to be like at least bone and mask and things like that. And we know that there is blood inside of your bones too. So even if it is just straight up bone, that wouldn't really counter it.
Well, I mean, his bone wouldn't have the same durability scaling as his mask, though.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But I'm saying that this still demonstrates that they're relative,
Oh yeah,
regardless
no,
of say
I
some
just
slight
wanted
discrepancies.
to make sure that like we agreed that it wasn't like just the mask that Kenpachi was cutting, and that he did actually scale to Yami's like real durability in this moment.
Mhm.
And then I wanted to go into like I wouldn't necessarily say this because of like a lack of power on Byakuya's part, but more just like the nature of his ability. He doesn't really inflict deep wounds, which I think does kind of make it problematic to scale his attack potency, because really all he does here is kind of like, I guess, leave like shallow cuts on Yami's face.
It
And
seems as though he kind of skinned like a chunk of his face. It looks like he got skinned right there. But you got to keep in mind, like, oh shit, he actually cut part of his muscle behind him too. So we see the mask part, that little jaw piece. That's actually not really bleeding too much. It's what's behind it. That's interesting. But
yeah,
yeah,
that's what I
looking
was.
at this, we see so he cuts through, goes not just into his like fucking face, but like behind it too, cutting into that part of the meat. But this is still the weakest form of it, and we know that it's shown demonstrably that all right, Ichigo got cut by what was it, just the standard Senbon Zakura, and then he fights against him using Senkei, and then he's able to start slicing him like very deep to the point where like his body isn't able to move quite as efficiently, to the point where like the injuries as well as the weight of his own spiritual pressure was starting to stop him from being able to move at all.
Okay, yeah. Let me push for this one thing really quick. So there's like Ichigo's nick on this Yami or whatever, or on Yami, and then there's like Byakuya's damage that he does, right? Are you fine saying that those are like, even, yeah, I know Byakuya gets stronger and everything. But are you fine with saying that those are like similar amounts of damage done?
Similar amounts, yeah, that's fine. But like you said, this doesn't even scale to Byakuya's like fullest
Yeah,
potential
no. I
because we
just
have
wanted
like
to.
what's stated to be like hundreds. I think it's hundreds of millions of blades, and then potentially with the most powerful techniques, condensing them down to like say a few thousand, to then condensing them down to one, putting
Okay.
his power like far more, far above anything that you see in his most standard form.
So I guess I'm sure. Okay, well, let me just say this really quick. So if we have like similar amounts of power between Byakuya's weakest stage of his Bankai and Ichigo when he's at like half his spiritual pressure, obviously I can't give you some sort of correlation between spiritual pressure and AP. Other than that, their AP does increase to some extent. Um, so would you be fine with saying the weakest form of Byakuya's Bankai would just be unquantifiably below uh, Ichigo's like full power, just normal Bankai state?
Well, no, because we know that he used that attack with his hollow mask on,
Oh yeah, yeah,
which is
with the
comparable to like
mask.
a resurrection state. So this would still put him above like Ichigo's base, even when he has all of his spirit energy.
Uh, okay, yeah. Above Ichigo's base, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so he would still be above Ichigo's base, which is mainly what we see fighting against Gin. We see like one technique used against him, but
Well, Ichigo does actually use his mask to evade an attack from Gin.
mhm. But even then,
Uh,
it's like it gives like a vague speed multiplier, if anything, because like yeah, it's like a vague speed, not even multiplier, but like increase. Doesn't seem
like
to be like anything significant to the point where it's like say able to overcome a blitzing distance or a blitzing difference.
yeah. I think his mask not allowing him to like catch up to the speed of people who are blitzing him. I guess so. What was the point before that you were making? Right before I went into the thing about like whether the AP of the attacks was similar, something with Byakuya's like power increases, right?
Oh yeah, no, it's shown demonstrably that it goes from like say in the Ichigo fight, it goes from say shallow wounds, like he did when he caught him in his Shikai form, to then like when they're fighting and then he's using Senkei to the point where he's like slicing through him to the point where he was about to be able to kill him with that. Meanwhile, there's no indication that say his regular Bankai form would have been able to do the same thing because he caught him dead on with his like when he was in Shikai, and Ichigo like was still able to fight. Wasn't even that fucked up.
Okay. So with that, I guess we have like Senkei above above Hollow Mask Ichigo, and Hollow Mask Ichigo above like base beyond Bankai Byakuya and Byakuya above base Ichigo.
Yeah, that should be fine. But also keep in mind, Byakuya can also increase the speed of his Bankai's attacks, and we also know that his Shunpo seems to be the fastest technique that he has, like with Senka, or even worse, Utsusemi, which although it's not in character for him to use it just like in the middle of any fight, if he's about to die, he will use it.
Okay. Um.
Or if he's really pissed off at someone, like for example, when he was pissed off against Zomari, he used Utsutsemi um, just to kind of shit on him because he was like, nah, yeah, no, you're totally outclassed in this fight. And he even said, it's because you pointed your blade at my pride. And that was Rukia. And we know blatantly that he stopped Gin from killing Rukia at one point. So, I mean, if this is in character with intent to kill, Utsutsemi wouldn't be out of the picture. Same with different techniques like Goke.
Wait, what you're saying? He used what technique to stop Gin from attacking Rukia?
No, he just used some type of Shunpo. He stopped him
Oh
from killing.
yeah.
But whenever Zomar, like someone tried to kill Rukia, like we see that he has no qualms using like secret techniques or even techniques he generally doesn't like to use. Like for example, Utsutsemi, like he used against Zomari, because he doesn't like to use techniques he learned from Yoruichi, but he did whenever he was fighting Zomari, because Zomari was about to kill Rukia, and we know that Gin almost killed Rukia, and it was Byakuya that stopped him. So I mean, like this would be a little bit personal for Byakuya, so it wouldn't be out of the question for him to use a technique like that, for example, which is able to blitz people who were keeping up with him. So I mean, Byakuya always has faster techniques if someone is able to keep up with his standard Shunko or Shunpo. God, Byakuya Shunko would be deadly.
Okay. Well, something. Well, okay. So, Ichigo obviously does have like a Shinpo like thing as well. And I assume you are aware of like how to scale Shinpo speed like above like somebody's normal combat speed, right?
Uh, yeah, with some exceptions in the series, because some people generally do use their speed increasing techniques to attack. Like Zomari does that, so does Byakuya.
Yeah. Okay. Um. Oh, I guess we can go into that in first thing, but yeah, there's just like instances where a character is far away from another person and manages to like blitz over using Shinpo, but the person can always react to the attack because the attack simply just isn't moving as fast as the Shinpo as being demonstrated because the person shouldn't be able to react to it if it was, right?
Mm.
So then what is the well, I guess you're saying Byakuya uses Shinpo and some other thing, right? The faster technique.
Well, Senka is using Shunpo. Like it seems to be ramping it up to its max to attack someone and then just neg their spirit energy and their ability to produce it, and just kind of power dulls them as a result of striking two specific points. So I mean, he seems to be one of those characters where the speed of his average Shunpo would scale to his attack speed.
Because of Senka.
Yeah, that seems to be the case because people who can block Senka are shown to be able to block his regular sword swings.
When has he used Senka exactly?
Against Ichigo twice, once on the bridge, once in the human world. Against Renji during their fight, Renji was able to block Senka, and then anytime that they had a normal sword exchange, he was able to block it. He got overwhelmed in his Bankai, but you know, for obvious reasons.
Okay, so if I assume Byakuya, when moving in Shunpo, in this fight with Renji, is like having the typical signs where like Renji doesn't react to it until Byakuya has like exited Shunpo and starts attacking.
No,
That's not how it works in that fight.
no, he blatantly reacts to it. I believe Ichigo does the same thing. He even explicitly states, "I can see your movements now," showing
Oh
that he
yeah.
can see him moving to attack him as well as the actual attack itself. Even with Renji. Now Renji had the advantage of knowing this technique, having seen it for years and years and like decades. But simply knowing the technique doesn't mean that you're able to do it. If you're gonna pull out a fucking Glock at me, it doesn't mean I'm bullet speed just because I know what you're about to do.
Yeah. And then so you have them reacting to Shinpo, and then what do they not react to Senke or Senka, whatever it's called?
No, because like Senka seems to be reacted to, and then I didn't hear any contention towards the idea that characters who block Shun or Senka generally are able to block his normal sword swings. I'm assuming there's no contention with that.
Um, with I mean that I guess that is like kind of a current point. But I don't really have any problem with that. I just am trying to get to the bottom of like whether these characters reacting to both of these means that these things are of similar speed.
Well, they seem to do it with a similar ease, and that's why I would say that they seem to be of similar speed. Because, for example, if I can casually react, like say with the same amount of physical effort and mental effort, I could react to like say your fastest you throwing a baseball at me as fast as you can, and then with the same effort, the same exact level of effort, I'm able to react to like your fastest punch. That would most likely indicate that your fastest punch is of similar speed to that baseball that you're throwing, however fast you may throw the baseball.
I'm not sure because I don't necessarily know if there typically would be any sort of like visual signs of like a person struggling to react more short of an attack just being towards the top of that person's like possible reaction time. Um, so if this person is reacting to both of these things, it could just be the case that they both fall short to varying degrees of the person's reaction time.
Not necessarily, because for example, we could see like say for if you were to swing a sword on me,
Yeah.
like and then in two scenarios. Scenario one, of course, both scenarios were the same distance away, but then scenario one, I'm able to stop it at the exact same point in the swing with my arm in the same exact position with the same amount of physical effort, and then like say um I'm exerting the same amount of energy, like I'm using the same amount of fast twitch muscle fibers, they're moving the same distance in the same time, like the velocity of my arm moving from resting position to position of block is exactly the same in both scenarios, then that would indicate that both would be the same. And then we see, for example, um, Byakuya, he was pushed to use his Shikai against Ichigo at that point, which has little blades that are damn near invisible.
Okay. So as for the first half of that point, I do agree that under those circumstances that the reaction speed should be like pretty much the same, but I don't think those are things that we can actually observe in the Bleach manga.
Well, the amount of fast twitch muscle fiber, probably not. But we can see, say, for example, someone using similar amounts of effort, like
Well,
to
that's the other
block
thing.
the
I don't
same
even think.
sword swings, because that's all that Senka is. It's combining sword swings with Shunpo.
Yeah. So I don't think somebody I don't think there's like any clear indicators of effort, at least not enough to pinpoint things as being like equal in a speed or something. Because like I guess to tie it into your analogy with the whole like sword thing, if you're capable of reacting to like a sword swing at like just some random speed like 5,000 miles per hour, right? It's going to be incredibly easy for you to react to a sword swing at 1,000 miles per hour or 250 miles per hour. And the amount of effort that you're putting into it, as far as what it would look like from like a third person perspective, I'm not entirely sure if it would actually be any different.
And that would be true. However, if we would be able to notice things like, say, for example, if the character was somehow um like casually able to react to Senka rather than just being relative to Senka's speed, then something which would be, say, slower than it, they sure they could block the same attack with the same level of speed, but then they would also be able to, or should be able to, and this is what we should see. We should be seeing them casually just mollywopping the fuck out of Byakuya. But I believe the only time he got mollywopped in the series was against someone who stole his Bankai.
Yeah, time to scale Gene to Asnot. Let's go. Um, no. Well, okay, so I I I'm not entirely Senka. What exactly is Senka in terms of like is it like a keto or a type thing? Like an amp?
No, it's just Shunpo and his sword play. That's all it is.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. I guess I Sen
So are you fine with them being relative to each other, like his regular sword play and Senka, like in terms of speed?
uh I think just due to like the importance of this point. that I'm probably gonna have to like get some sort of scans for the fight, just so I know there's not something that I'm missing that I can argue here.
All right, give me a sec. I think I know where they're at. All right, so let's see. G versus Byakuya.
How you doing, True?
Oh, the debate's still going on?
Yeah, man. I mean, we kind of went through the AP
We
point
don't
after
trust True.
the speed. It should just
Listen,
kind of get into.
I've been listening. I've been listening.
No. I really wanted to get Saiboshi to judge it, but I knew he wouldn't do that.
Why not?
Is he in the server?
He just doesn't respond.
Should have told me. Bullshit always responds to me.
Look, that's because you spent like gay friends playing video game time with him.
Not even sure what that means.
Give me one.
Wait, so
second.
Chief, is the debate over?
No, they're finding
No.
something.
Oh,
I mean-
my bad. It came in.
If Demi wanted to concede, it could be over right now.
I mean, I guess, yeah.
Each 139. Here we go. Oh, fuck. Dropped my phone. That's why I shouldn't have my phone when I'm drunk.
He said I'm drunk debating. Sad.
To be fair, Error does get high when he debates and still wins.
Dude, I used to do the same thing. I can't even cap. Can't talk shit neither.
It's so hot.
Hold on, let me save that picture of Yoruichi. About to fap to it later. No, I'm kidding.
Whoa. Yeah, when I was getting my Geeton scans, I accidentally
You don't gotta
dropped
cover
back to
that
some
nut,
sauce.
man.
Nah, man, hentai exists for a reason. I don't need random manga pages.
I don't know. Sometimes those like borderline manga. Sometimes they hit different.
Okay, so here we see right here. This is him reacting to the movement because we see Byakuya. He was standing on top of that pillar right there, and then we see those little lines indicating movement. And he says he's coming. It's him reacting towards the movement of Senka. So then he knows that he's coming, and then he appears right here. Is like a visual representation of what's happening, like him being right there and swinging. And we even see like all of those little lines around him indicating that he's still using Shunpo while moving. And then that's even shown within the feat where he uses it against Ichigo.
Okay, so now I seeing this, I'm a bit unsure as to whether the the reaction here is the same thing. It kind of looks like kind of what I was saying earlier with other cases of Shinpo, where Byakuya in Shinpo is able to like move behind him before Renji can really do anything. I mean, Renji seems to be aware that Byakuya is approaching him, but it doesn't seem like there's really anything he can do about it until Byakuya stops and
Here,
swings
he
the
doesn't
sword.
actually stop because we see that in what was it, the Ichigo versus Renji fight the first time. So hold on, and then there's even a description where it just says hold on, right. There's even a description. I believe it says it's just Shunpo with a spin, so that you can slash through your opponent. Yeah, it destroys the Saketsu chain and the soul sleep with a single thrust. And then he says, I can finally follow your movements. So it's not just talking about like the movement with the sword swings. It's actually talking about him say using his what was it? Senka to kind of move around him and try to attack him. Like here, hold on. I've got a gif of it actually. Oh my god, why is it taking me to some other wiki? No, don't do this. Don't do this bullshit. Hold up, it should be here. You remember the fight against Renji where he like pulls his sword on Byakuya, right?
Which one?
The first one in the Human World Substitute Soul Reaper arc.
Between Renji and Byakuya?
Ichigo and Renji,
Oh,
where then
Ichigo and
Byakuya
Renji.
ends the fight, right? You remember that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Do you remember how that fight ended?
Ichigo gets negged by Senka.
Yeah, yeah. Do you remember what Ichigo says about Senka?
No.
Oh, he just appeared behind me. When did he move? When did he even strike? And then we see even how this move works here, as well as the description in the manga. So we see that he moves. He doesn't even see him draw his sword. And then after he stops moving, he's like, he stabbed. He couldn't even follow it.
Yeah, I think
Unless I'm just too drunk to remember. Oh no, he feels the second attack. He doesn't even feel the first one.
so. I kind of want to, I guess, keep going over the previous point because my counter to like this thing would kind of, it's kind of relying on all the things working in like conjunction. Because this, I would say this wouldn't necessarily have to be because they're the same speed. Like I was saying earlier, they could just both be faster than him. To like a different extent. So as for this thing with like Renji, like I understand that Renji, uh, like, well, I understand everything you're saying, but I don't. What I don't get is if these things were the same speed, then why would Renji not start moving to counter Byakuya's attack before Byakuya got behind him?
He was intimidated beforehand because you got to keep in mind this is someone who intimidated the shit out of him. There's a lot of emotional significance for him. He even senses his spiritual pressure and starts sweating, almost like a Goku versus Jiren moment. He's like, the spiritual pressure. He starts dripping sweat like it's a Key and Peele skit, and then he looks up, and then he sees that it's his captain, and then he knows he's gonna have to stand against the man that he admires the most in his life, as well as fears the most, in order to save the woman that he loves the most. So there is a whole lot of things going on here. And then he sees that he disappears, and then he says he's coming. And then while he's still in shock, we even see that while Byaku is still moving in the bottom right panel, we even see like a lot of the little lines around him indicating that he's still moving at those Shunpo speeds. Because later on, whenever he blocks it, he doesn't have those lines around his face and everything, or like around his hair, around his skin, things like that, indicating movement in Shunpo. So this would indicate that it is. Again, with the statement where he says a Shunpo with the spin for striking the enemy from behind.
I'm not
And then
entirely
juxtapose
sure
that
if
with
the
the other
lines.
two. Juxtapose that with the other two instances that we see him using it. Seems heavily indicated that, all right, well, he's moving while he's striking them, showing that if you're able to, say, react to his Shunpo speed, or rather Senka, you should be able to react to his stationary non-Shunpo enhanced, or not Shunpo enhanced, but rather non-Shunpo speed. Because though his movement speed, that's just him moving his moving between like a place in space to another place, he's still moving his arm and his and things like that. So it seems as though he's one of the few exceptions where combat speed in terms of like swinging the sword scales towards Shunpo. Like for example, Zomari.
Okay. So I guess to start from the beginning of that, the point about like Renji's mental state or whatever, or him being like intimidated. I can't imagine a character being intimidated, making it to where they have like a delayed desire to save their own life. Um, Obviously these are like different characters, but we know like Ichigo's case when he's facing up to like Okuiora when he transformed and he gets blitzed by what I presume was Okuiora's Sonito before Okuiora goes to strike him, but he still manages to fire it. Agetsuka to save himself, and it would seem to just be kind of like a basic reaction when something that is threatening to you starts approaching you, that you do something. And like, while I do see the potential for like the induction that you're making about like his mental state stopping him from doing that, I don't think that argument is like close enough to a necessary implication to say that Renji would just not react in a way that would be like incredibly intuitive or instinctual to literally like any living thing.
Well, again, I'm not quite seeing how this would be purely instinctual. Again, even then, if I were to say that it is instinctual, that wouldn't debunk the idea that he's able to react to it. Because I have yet to hear a valid defeater to the idea that, say, Senka combines Shunpo speed with his own combat speed, whatever it may be. But then seeing how it works, seeing as how characters are able to, like, say, react to, at later points in the series, react to both. I'm not seeing how this somehow makes it so that, oh well, or rather, there's no way that this scales to it. Or rather, these two techniques scale to each other. God, I'm having a stroke. I'm too drunk right now. But
so I guess where
yeah,
the
even then,
defeater would come in.
There was another thing I needed to address there. That seems to be a bit of a false, like a bad comparison there between Ichigo and Renji, because Renji, he's shitting his pants. We even see it blatantly, like not literally shitting his pants, but you know what I mean. He's walking, and then he's determined, and then he's even having a bit of like a trip down memory lane, where it almost seems to be existential to the point where he's saying, oh well, he's reflecting on his whole childhood life, and then the current situations in which he's in now, and then he's distracted, saying, I won't let them put you to death, Rukia, and then Byakuya shows up. And then this, just feeling his spiritual pressure is enough to stop him in his tracks. And he starts dripping sweat. His heart rate starts racing, starts going up to the point where even like the onomatopoeia things on the panel are starting to say like bum 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 bum, things like that to indicate heartbeat. And so then he's trying to gather his resolve to fight him. And then he says, is there no way you'll let me pass? And then he says, I won't say it twice. And we even see here his heart rate is still going nuts. And then he sees like the look on his face seems a bit like angry, yet still kind of like scared. And then it turns into like complete vulnerability at the sight of Byakuya using his Shunpo to appear towards him. So you're looking at someone who is intimidated to the point of being absolutely mortified at what's going to happen, versus Ichigo, who is just he's intimidated, sure, but he's surprised and still has his full resolve at that very moment.
Okay, yeah.
At this point in time, it's hard to say that Renji has his full resolve because, I mean, well, not only is his mind preoccupied with saving Rukia, it's also shown that, his mental state is just kind of being rattled at the fact that he has to fight against him. And even then, Byakuya seems completely surprised after Renji blocks his attack.
So I want to bring up Ichigo's fight with Kenpachi in that same arc, where like before Kenpachi even like actually pulls up on him, he gets like pressured down by his like Reiatsu, and also has like similar symptoms, I think, of like his heart rate going up and he starts sweating and he's like literally just baffled as to like what on earth is happening. And he's like terrified of Kenpachi, but at no point does he actually like stop trying to block the attacks or counterattack. He even ends up running away, still trying to avoid him, where he has to like have his like pep talk with Zangetsu just to like feel like he has a hope of like actually fighting Kenpachi.
Renji's literally shown to be of less willpower though, so I'm not quite sure that this is an apt comparison.
Well, okay, yeah, I understand that they're like different things, but it's not like
Well,
we
no.
exactly have a particular difference where we know for a fact that Renji stops trying to do certain things when he's in like a distressed mental state. Like that, you are currently giving an argument for that being the case in this, but it's kind of more just like, well, if somebody was in this condition, they might not do that. And obviously, there's other characters. Ichigo does tend to have stronger resolve than Renji is shown, but he's doing that. I'm just confused as to where we say that it's like, or where we would draw that it's probable for somebody to like lose their instinct to defend themselves.
I don't think it's necessarily something which can be given to, like, say, a general rule. For example, Hinata would lose his nerve a lot quicker than Ichigo would.
Yeah.
Or, for example, Renji at different points in the series has less resolve than other points. Also, I want you to look here. Another instance of Shunpo being used, we even see in this one, he directly reacts to it. And both times that people are able to react to it, he resorts towards his Shikai, which is stated to use tiny blades which can't be seen.
Do you have the panel right after that one? Or the page, I should say.
Give me a sec. Uno momento.
Oh.
Here we go. Here's the rest of the whole scene. So then he rushes towards him. Ichigo literally reacts to the movement speed because we see him like turning the whole time. And then we even see on Byakuya's body, his face is drawn without it, but we could even see on the scarf, on like the tips of his hair, on his back and his cloak, and like all of his clothes, with the exception of like his face, his whole body pretty much is covered in that stylistic effect, showing that it's they're using like Shunpo, Hirenkyaku, or they're using Sonido. And then we see that he blocks it, he parries the strike, and then immediately after he goes in to try to use his Shikai. You know what happens when Renji does the same thing?
What?
He immediately goes in to try to use his Shikai. Indicating
Okay.
that if someone is able to react to this, he doesn't tend to try to use his base Zanpakuto.
Wait, you're saying Byakuya uses his Shikai when people react to that?
When people are able to completely Senka, indicating that it would not be useful for him to try to continue using any type of basic swordplay.
Okay. So yeah, I have no problem with him like going to his Shikai when people react to Senka. But like even in the scans that you've shown, it seems to be just like another instance of Byakuya uses the ability and he's completely vanished from Ichigo's field of vision. Not saying Ichigo wasn't aware that he was like where he was going or anything like that, but it's just like, again, Ichigo doesn't even begin to move until Byakuya is already out of his field of vision. And so I don't understand, like, if Byakuya is swinging his sword at the same speed at which he exited Ichigo's field of vision, then why is it that Ichigo didn't move during Byakuya covering that entire larger distance than a simple sword swing, but then he does react to the sword swing, or like physically react, I should say, like actually turn to block it.
Well, I'm fairly certain that that's what we're seeing in that last panel, because that last panel, all right, we see him across the bridge, and then it seems as though the camera is trying to imitate rushing towards Ichigo, and then we see all of these lines of movement rushing behind Ichigo, indicating that this would be Byakuya right behind him. And so he even notices it immediately. So we don't actually see from Ichigo's vision. We're only seeing like what Kubo decides to draw. So I'm not quite sure how you're saying he left his field of vision.
Okay, well, I'd be basing that off of what's it called? Where's this game? I don't know. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So you have the Byakuya. I misinterpreted what's it called? One of the panels as being from Ichigo's perspective and not Byakuya's. That was my bad. But even if he's not leaving his field of vision, right? If we're saying that the lines are like indicative of Byakuya's placement, then shouldn't Byakuya already be like on the side of Ichigo or behind Ichigo in that panel where Ichigo's still facing forward with his sword in front of him?
Not necessarily, because seems to be right at Ichigo's position. Because like if we're saying, oh well, the lines are where Byakuya is at, that's a broad range where he could potentially be at, because we see, for example, Byakuya is a very thin guy. He's like 5'11" and like 2 inches thick. So I
Yeah.
mean that's not necessarily indicating his exact position. It's just a general location of, all right, this is where the movement is kind of occurring. It's not necessarily showing he's like in the front of it.
Oh no, yeah, that's fine. Well, I
But
guess
even then, them reacting towards like him using Shunpo to attack and to swing his sword, that, I mean, that would just kind of indicate, okay, they're able to react to his fastest techniques outside of Bankai.
well, as far as like normal Shinpo, I don't think it amps their actual attack speed at all. But
Well, no, I'm saying that there are specific cases where it does actually amp it. And I said Zomari as well as Byakuya, and I've maintained that position throughout this entire thing, and I've yet to hear a valid defeater towards it.
yeah, so
You're trying to say that it's a case wherever, oh well, they disappear and then reappear, but even then, the description of it, as well as the gift that I had sent, and even everything that I've shown you, seems to indicate that, well, he's moving and attacking in the same instance, meaning that he's able to attack while, say, like in the initial instance when it was shown, completely leaving Ichigo's frame of reference to the point where, okay, he was able to attack him twice, and he only felt the second time. The second time he attacked, he didn't even notice that he moved in the very first instance in the human world. And then every other time that we see it, okay, Renji's able to react to it even while in a mind fucked state. And then we even see Ichigo is able to react to it to the point where it genuinely surprises Byakuya. Same with Renji. And even then, since you agreed that those little lines indicate they're moving using Shunpo, it either indicates high speed movement or Shunpo, but in instances where someone's using Shunpo, it would most likely mean Shunpo, of course. Or for example, when a Soul Reaper like is fading around, and we see that all over Byakuya's body, except like on his head and neck, which, I mean, we're kind of shown this to illustrate like the this surprised look on his face.
okay. I guess so we don't have to go on this point much longer. I'll just kind of give my final thoughts on it. Yeah, if you have some other like counter to whatever I say, then you can bring it up. But pretty much I just don't think that the evidence that you've given, I think it's all evidence of like Ichigo reacting or Renji reacting to the sword strike, but I don't think any of this actually shows them having any sort of physical capability to move or do anything in particular while Byakuya is moving in Shunpo. And I think that due to that like lack of evidence of them moving with these more physical reactions during Byakuya's Shunpo, that it would be unlikely that they could somehow block an attack coming towards them from behind if it was moving at that same speed. And that's pretty much just like the summary of my point.
Okay, so again, there's a bit of a point. I think this summary seems to illustrate that you've kind of been missing the entire point, or just been leaving out something to intentionally avoid, maybe not intentionally, maybe unintentionally, avoid having to confront something within my argument. Is that I'm saying that it is combining both of them. It's not just a sword swing. It is a sword swing while moving at these high speeds using Shunpo.
Oh,
And so whenever
okay,
they
wait.
block it, they're moving, like it is actually like he's
So you're
moving
saying
with
like
Shunpo. There's
it's
even
the
a description
definition of the ability?
Even the description of the ability states that was Senka, a Shunpo with a spin for striking the enemy from behind.
Okay, yeah. I did forget that you'd mentioned that. My bad. So what can you say the description again?
A Shunpo with a spin. That was Senka, a Shunpo with a spin or flash step for striking the enemy from behind. It can destroy the Saketsu chain in the soul sleep with a single thrust. It's your
Yeah.
best move.
Okay. So I think I don't think that like description like would encompass or tell us that the sword swing is at the same speed as the Shunpo. It's like they're using a Shunpo and they are swinging a sword. They might even be swinging the sword while they're traveling in Shunpo, but I just don't know that the sword swing would actually be the same speed that they're traveling at.
Well, here I'm saying that it not necessarily the same, but it would at least be relative, and that's why I brought up this one scene wherever he uses it against Ichigo. We even see that he's moving, like as he's moving, we don't actually see him swinging his sword, but then we see like Ichigo's recollection of it. He's like he must have struck me twice. I was only able to follow the second one. And then we see he's still moving after he moves behind him, and then he recognizes what happens after he stops moving, indicating that he's not striking after he stops moving, indicating that he's striking while he's still moving, and he's moving using Shunpo.
No, yeah. I understand like that. I'm just saying like, yeah, like you can strike while moving through Shunpo, but that doesn't mean that your slash is the same speed as Shunpo.
I never said that it was. I said that it would be relative.
Or that it's
that
relative. Well, yeah, but relative in this context would pretty much serve as being like the same. But yeah, I guess the terminology.
Well, I mean, no, I would say that it would be. Like, say for example, if I'm running at you, and then I were to just swing on you at the same time, and let's say in scenario A, you're unable to react to me closing a distance of like 6 feet. And then in scenario B, you're unable to react to me closing a distance of 6 feet, and then I also swing on you in the same instance. That would show that they would at least have to be somewhat, relative towards each other. Because, for example, if I'm striking at 1 meter per second, but you're able to react 1 meter per second, but not 2 meters per second, which is roughly 6 feet. Then I mean, like, you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I see where you're going, but like to that, like the previous point before of like, if you close a distance of 6 feet, and I like can't react to you or whatever, you could be doing that at any well, okay, whether I could or couldn't react to you, that still doesn't pinpoint any like particular speed. Like there could be a wide variety of possible speeds for something to move at for somebody to react to, and a wide variety of speeds for something that somebody can't react to. And I don't see like where within that range.
Well, in the hypothetical, which I'm trying to create an analogy for, I've already pinpointed, like, say something. You can react to something like less than 2 meters per second, or rather 1 meters per second. And then, but then 2 meters per second, which is me like crossing that distance between me and you, like roughly 6 feet. And that's kind of the threshold there. And so the reason why I bring this up is because, for example, like Ichigo, he wasn't even able to react to either instance. He wasn't able to react to either the slice nor the attack. And then if the slice is happening while moving at this same speed, whenever he's using said technique, his combat speed as well as his shunpo speed should be relative. Like, I'm not sure what's difficult about this.
Well, I just don't see why they're relative though, because like I understand
What's
that.
your contention with this then? What's your contention with this? Because
Okay.
I mean, rather than just bringing up some type of question that you have some type of answer to, what's the defeater towards the argument?
The defeater towards the argument is that there is alternate possibilities without sufficient evidence.
Okay, bring up the possibilities, because otherwise we could just be appealing towards some type of unknown possibility which is unactualized and
Okay,
therefore unviable
so like
within it.
a possible set of explanations, I guess, that make all these events like consistent is like
Okay.
the explanation that the sword swing is not faster, or not fast, not relative to the shunpo like travel speed or whatever, which would give justification to why the characters don't move while the person's moving in shunpo, but do move once the character goes to attack, right? And that in instances like the one with Byakuya just like blitzing Ichigo with the shunpo and then attacking him, and Ichigo still can't react, that Byakuya could just simply be so much faster than Ichigo that both abilities are not at equal speed. One of them, or relative speed, I should say. One of them could be way slower than the other, but they are simply both faster than Ichigo can reasonably react to.
Okay, so there seems to be a bit of a problem here, because not only it seems as though, unless you just didn't properly articulate your argument, it seems as though that you're just making some type of appeal towards the possibility that there is a better explanation, but you have yet to give any type of
that was the
probability-based argument. Hold on, let me finish. That there was some type of probability surrounding said argument, because you said, oh, well, this is a possible explanation. But then I have more evidence showing that, all right, well, this would mean that, say, for example, these seem to be relative towards each other, that he boosts his striking speed, or rather his striking speed when using Senka should be relative to his shunpo speed, because it's just him moving his arm and unsheathing his sword and then attacking while he's moving. And then, for example, you would have to, in order to do something like this, Byakuya would have to have reaction speeds at bare minimum relative towards his movement speed in order to perceive what's moving around him. But then also, if this is the same case, to perceive what's happening, they'd have to be his combat speed in order to, say, for example, in the case of Ichigo, whip out his sword in the same motion, stab him twice, and then put it away. It would have to be at least somewhat comparable, because he would have to do more actions than it would to do, say, that same attack, than it would be to just move and perceive what's going on.
Okay. I like I know we've been going on this. I just still don't quite get it. So I guess we should probably leave that to like the judgment.
Well, what are you not getting about it though? Like, what other unanswered questions do you have about that argument?
So tell me if you follow me here, right? So we would agree that moving in shunpo and striking doesn't imply that the strike is of the same speed as like however fast you're moving, like, or traveling, right?
Hold on, sorry, repeat that. You'd cut out on my end.
Like, do we agree that just because someone's moving in shunpo, if they strike while they're moving in shunpo, that the strike speed wouldn't necessarily be the same as or relative to the shunpo speed?
It depends on the context, but I mean, it doesn't always mean that. Sure.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to say that like encompasses your whole point or anything right now. So there's that. And then we know that if a character uses two things in conjunction and both of those things blitz another character, that doesn't necessarily mean those things are relative. They're just both faster than that character. And as for Byakuya being able to react to his own movements, like I think you mentioned before, I mean, that also still wouldn't mean they're relative. That just means they're both somewhere within the realm of things that he can react to and things that Ichigo can't physically react to. And then,
Well, there's nothing to say that his reaction speed would be much higher than his Shunpo speed. It would at least be equal towards his travel speed with Shunpo, which my
yeah,
position would be that, well, his travel speed with Shunpo would be equal, at least equal to not only his reaction speed, but or it at least be relative towards his combat speed. So like if we were to say, all right, so even if it's vaguely above, like to no substantial degree lower than his or rather higher than his reaction speed, then any movement which can be perceived and done in the same breath should at least be somewhat comparable, not necessarily equivalent to it.
wait, can you restate that?
Fucking head is spinning. So for example, all right, so if his reaction, all right, so we have reaction speed and we have travel speed. Travel speed being the Shinpo. They have to be at least equal. There's no evidence to say that it's quantifiably higher. All right.
Yeah.
And so he's able to perceive the movements that he's doing. And then he's able to strike while doing this. And then people who are able to block this are not shown getting blitzed by his travel speed, or not travel speed, his combat speed. Meanwhile, they're not getting there's no indication that they're getting blitzed, at least their perception speed, because we never see anyone move in Shunpo while he also uses Shunpo. That has yet to happen. But we know that people are tracking his movements while he's doing said technique, Senka. And it's even described that it's just Shunpo with a spin. Like it's primarily a Shunpo based technique. I think in the data books it even classifies it as a ho-ho technique, which is Shunpo.
Yeah. So yeah, there's characters reacting to both of these things, right? And we know that
No one gets blitzed by his standard combat speed, though.
yeah, no one's getting blitzed by his combat speed, or at least in these instances that you've shown, they're not having their like just basic like mental reaction time blitzed either, right? They're aware of like both things that are taking place.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that the Shunpo speed is at least equal to the reaction speed, right? So
well, the reaction speed, yeah. I mean,
so
it's
what
greater
I'm
than or
is,
equal to, if we were to put it mathematically.
If the sword swing was slower than the Shunpo speed or whatever, which I'm not saying it is necessarily. I'm just saying that it doesn't derive like any sort of like issue with the circumstances, because if it's slower and they're capable of reacting to a Shunpo, then they should be able to react to it as well, which is what we see them do. And Byakuya would be capable of reacting to it as well, as he does, presumably, seeing as he's making the motion. And then for like, so from there, then there has to be some sort of like new factor that shows why it's more probable for the speeds to be relative rather than one just being slower and the characters are still able to react to it because they're capable of reacting to the faster one as well.
Again, that kind
and
of
then to
assumes that
that,
it would be faster though. That's kind of the problem here.
you have
Is that
what?
I have a consistent view of these things. Like for example, it would be consistent within this view of the series for Senka, the sword slashes within said technique to scale towards his Shunpo. That would be consistent because we know that your reaction speed is at least is greater than or equal to your reactions or your Shunpo speed. Your reaction
Yeah,
speed would be greater than or equal to that.
I agree there.
Yeah, so then if it's greater than or equal to that, and yet we have no evidence to suggest that anyone would be getting blitzed by his his standard combat speed.
But that just means that it's
Meanwhile, hold on. Meanwhile, no one that we see able to block Senka is stated that they couldn't react to it. They even blatantly say, I can see your movements. Ichigo says, I can see your movements now. Renji says, I can see your movements now.
yes. So like that does create the case that Senka's not faster than the Shunpo because characters aren't getting blitzed by
Well,
it
of
and they
course,
can
if you
react
just Shinpo.
to Shunpo. But I'm saying that just because it's not faster than it doesn't mean that it's relative to it.
Wait, just because Senka's not faster than Shinpo? I never said that it was. I said that
I know.
Senka would be relative towards it because no one who reacts to Senka, which is his Shunpo speed, like people like Ichigo, he reacts to it. He blocks Senka. He never gets blitzed by his standard combat speed again. Ever since like he was a little fledgling soldier. That's the only time that happens. And then, for example, with Renji, it literally never happens again. The only time he gets blitzed by Byakuya is like with his Bankai. But even then, we know that his that's a bit circumstantial because the blades, they're not necessarily able to be seen unless like from very specific angles. This happens with Asnoth. This happens with Ichigo. It's consistent. So there's no outliers for this. There's no outliers for this line of thinking.
I'm not
There's no
saying there's
inconsistencies within this. So if there's no inconsistencies within this, but then, like say for example, you're trying to say, oh well, Byakuya's speed scaling wouldn't really be based off of the Shunpo. Well, okay. You were trying to say, okay, it seems as though they're getting blitzed by the Shunpo and only reacting to the standard sword swing. Well, doesn't quite seem to be the case because they're tracking his Shunpo speed
yeah,
straight
I
up,
should
even if it.
clarify when
Mhm.
I say when I said like they weren't quote like reacting to the Shinpo, I really should use like a different term. I just meant like they aren't like moving to stop anything that's incoming.
And even then, they're not moving at Shunpo speeds. So it's not like they can move out of the way stand like with their normal running speed because we know, for example, there's very few characters in the series whose just standard movement speed would be higher than their Shunpo speed. Like for example, Kenpachi, he's one of the only ones. Or Yachiru, she's one of the only ones.
Yeah. So like in all the instances like you've shown, I agree it would be consistent within those if this was how the ability worked, but it would also be consistent if the uh blade attack speed or whatever was just slower than the Shinpo. And as for the additional thing that you use about like just what the ability is defined as, uh I think it's just as implied by that the ability could just be using Shinpo and a normal sword swing in conjunction with one another.
And again, in order for you to say that, you'd have to be ignoring one of the scans that I sent, which blatantly shows, for example, him using it against Ichigo, and then he's still moving when he attacks Ichigo, and Ichigo is only able to recognize what happened after he stops moving.
No, yeah,
But
I'm not
even
saying
then,
he
we're not
stops
seeing it. Hold
using
on, we're
Shinpo.
not seeing it from Ichigo's perspective. We're seeing it from how Kubo is drawing it, and then this is just an anime adaptation of it. So we, as the reader, are seeing Byakuya stop moving after he strikes Ichigo, indicating, okay,
Yes.
he's still moving as he strikes Ichigo.
Yeah. So my what I'm saying is I'm not saying that he stops using Shinpo and then swings his sword, because then
Okay,
there'd
so
be
then
no
where's the
point.
contention? Because that seemed to be your initial point of contention by me scaling Senka to his actual sword swing speed. Because I was saying,
No.
okay, well, his Shunpo would scale relative because as he's moving, seeing as the characters who are unable to react to his Shunpo speed are getting like they get blitzed by it, like a true blitz by it, they're also getting blitzed by the attacking speed itself. But for
Yes.
example, the only time that we see people get blitzed by Senka, there's no indication that they're getting blitzed by what's it called? That they're also getting blitzed by his standard swings, or that they're really just getting blitzed at all. Like there's no indication that his standard swings would be weaker. Meanwhile,
Okay.
there is indication that they should be relative towards each other, seeing as, for example, people that are able to react towards it, he doesn't even bother using standard swings on. We know that Byakuya doesn't waste time just hacking away at opponents. Never has. So it'd
So
be more consistent that him switching to using his Shikai would, or rather, it would be more in character of an assumption, or rather, it'd be more of a in character analysis to say, well, him using his Shikai at this point indicates that this would be the most effective route. Like when he fights against Renji, he was about to use his Shikai, not knowing that Renji could use his Shikai without calling out his name or its name. Or when he was on the bridge, he's going to use his Shikai to kill everyone on the bridge, not knowing that Yoruichi was going to come out of nowhere, suppressing her spirit energy to where she can't be sensed and blindsiding him. Or when he was fighting against Zomari, using his Bankai to kill him quickly. You see what I'm saying? Like it.
okay. So once again to start from where the point began. Yeah, no, my contention wasn't. I might have worded something wrong. Wasn't with him being able to attack while moving in Shinpo. I guess to give like an example of it is like if I was running at like 100 miles per hour, and I swing a sword while I'm doing that, the motion of my arm moving in any particular direction doesn't have to match my running speed. It would be true that there. God, hold on.
Did you say hold? Did he say hold up? I couldn't hear that last part.
Yeah, I think he's doing something. Also, you guys have been on this point for like an hour. You guys gonna move on from this?
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, my point is that like he could be moving, traveling, whatever, running, however they move with Shinpo, jumping, whatever it is, at a particular speed, and his sword swing could be at a different speed while in that motion.
Yeah. So, generally speaking, just based off of anatomy, they're definitely not the same. You're correct. Your striking speed's usually faster.
I mean, maybe.
Because, for example, a human can strike as fast as a cobra can strike with their hands, but in terms of say running speed, we're pretty fucking slow. The fastest human runs like 28 miles an hour. The average human runs like 15 miles per hour.
Yeah.
It's like
So
15 to 20 on the athletic end.
my idea here is that somebody can swing at a different speed that they're traveling at while traveling at whatever the given speed is. And a character not being blitzed by two abilities does not mean the two abilities are relative, and a character being able to react to both abilities also doesn't mean that the abilities are relative in speed.
Hold on 1 second. I'm playing this game and I'm getting attacked. Give me a sec.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here, you fucking faggot. Okay, so what were you saying?
Yeah, I was just saying that like a person can swing a sword at a speed that is different than the speed that they are currently traveling at while swinging that sword, right? So yeah, so my problem's not with like whether he's using Shinpo while swinging the sword. I'm just saying even then it's still not necessarily the same speed. And then a character being blitzed by both abilities does not mean both abilities are relative. It just means both abilities are somewhere above the person's reaction time. And then a character reacting to both of them also does not mean that the abilities are relative in speed either.
I don't know, again, you're strawmanning me. So you're trying to say, oh well, just because they react to both doesn't mean that, or they get blitzed by both doesn't mean that they're necessarily the same speed. Well, no, I never said that they're necessarily the same speed just based off of like some vague description like that. That's not what I stated. So hold on, we can accelerate it more. Okay, so for example, like, well, the whole argument just seemed to be, this is something I'm not sure that you're getting. It's making an abductive argument. So there's a set of incomplete observations, which I'm using to make this conclusion. And this would be the best predictor for it. Not only is it consistent, but there's the most preponderance of evidence to support my conclusion over yours, over your counter conclusion. So I don't think that you've successfully countered this description of the ability whatsoever. So moving forward from that, I guess I would just say that I believe that I won that point about the description of his speed. And so seeing as, say, we have his Shunpo speed being so high, we know that Yami wasn't even really able to perceive Byakuya while he was moving with his Shunpo. Only ever seemed to be able to do that when he was moving outside of it. So there's no indication that he would be at that level. Meanwhile, Ichigo seems to be above, but still somewhat relative towards Yami in his resurrection, because he was able to get grabbed by him from a somewhat decent distance. This is after being knocked away by the Bala, by multiple Balas. And then on top of that, the only times that he really like kind of outmaneuvers him is when he's just moving around. And then even then, like say for example, what's his name's ability? Or rather his punch got very close to Ichigo before he was able to even move out of the way, indicating that it took him a minute to actually react to it. So this would just kind of put them at a relative level. So we have relativity there, and then we have Byakuya being at worst relative to Yami, without using like say his Shunpo. And so then I would just say that he would scale at least, this is at least vaguely above Ichigo during the Fate Karakura Town arc, or at least during that point in time. Any contention?
I just want to give my conclusion on the previous point, really quick, which is just that there's like the conclusion that Demi has about their speed being relative, and then there's all the evidence that he provided to support that. And my whole thing was, I believe that I showed with each given piece of evidence why that could be used equally as evidence for different possibilities, and why there is no actual direct implication of any particular one of these two options, because both just worked within all of the same evidence. So both would be equally justified. But regardless of that, though, I do believe I will concede this debate here because I'm dying. Like,
oh come on, we just have like we have like 2 points to get through.
It's hit like 90 degrees in my room, 95 something. Tough.
Don't tell me this is how it's gonna end.
I mean, he conceded. I mean, are you gonna do a concession denied to the classic?
The classic.
You're gonna
Whack.
hit him with that.
My shirt is like drenched in sweat. You guys want it?
What your sweaty shirt? I'll send it over.